Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Whether it's pod racing on the sand dunes of Tatooine, the double crosses on Cloud City, the massive battle on Scarif, or the showdown on the Salts of Crate, I really do think there's something in these movies for everyone. A scene or a set piece that comes to mind immediately when someone says Star Wars. And even though I might be a little late to the party, in this video I want to explore mine. Oh, and I should mention that if you're looking for even more, you'll find a whole playlist of Star Wars Defined videos that I'll link to in the description below. So okay, there was a few scenes I really considered talking about. Most from the original trilogy, one from the prequels, but in the end, I couldn't help but come back to Star Wars Episode 4, and the one simple scene that to me encapsulates everything I love about the series. The scene I'm talking about today is the rescue on the Death Star. It might be famous for one iconic Carrie Fisher line,
"Too short for a stormtrooper?"
Huh?
But when you zoom out a bit, I really think it has everything that made the film special. Obi-Wan leaves Luke and the gang alone on the Death Star, where they immediately find out that a princess is being held captive on board. Han takes a little convincing, but soon they're hatching what I would call one of the most goofy and half-assed plans in movie history to save her. And of course, it works. Part of what makes this scene fun is how loose and casual it feels. I love moments like Han trying to impersonate an officer before completely giving up and just blasting the console. I love Luke trying to put the handcuffs on Chewie only to get freaked out and hand them off to Han, who can't even fit them on the Wookiee's wrists. These aren't the big scenes. This isn't the Death Star blowing up or a showdown in the throne room. They're just small human moments. Something that I think George Lucas and Star Wars would kind of go on to really struggle with. I have a soft spot for some of the prequels, but I think we can admit that down-to-earth dialogue isn't something they're exactly great at. Having seen so much of George Lucas's other work, from THX 1138 to Revenge of the Sith, I think it's fair to say that even though the man is talented at a lot of things, this kind of naturalistic, conversational dialogue is not one of them. Yet here, he makes it look easy. And if I had to guess, I'd say that's the result of being pushed out of his comfort zones in ways that he wouldn't need to be on future movies. I think a lot of that comes down to one person, honestly. A woman by the name of Marcia Lucas. Married to George from 1969 to 1983, it's safe to say that Marcia's influence on Star Wars has gone fairly underappreciated. A highly skilled editor on Scorsese movies like New York, New York, and most famously Taxi Driver, she won an Oscar for her editing work on A New Hope. A movie she didn't even initially plan to work on, but came into at the last minute when it became clear that it wasn't quite cutting together. Let's put it this way, if you're on the edge of your seat during the assault on the Death Star at the end of the movie, you have Marcia's editing to thank for that. But her influence on the franchise went beyond editing, which to be clear is already a huge contribution. In the biography George Lucas: A Life, the author talks about how George would read from the script out loud, and Marcia, who was generally not a fan of science fiction or fantasy and preferred more grounded realism, would tell him if she liked it. Or, as was often the case, if she thought the dialogue was just too wooden and he needed to try it again. And I think it's in great scenes like the rescue on the Death Star that you can really see that in action. George Lucas knew that dialogue wasn't always his biggest strength. Famously, on the set of Star Wars, Harrison Ford would tell him, "George, you can type this shit, but you sure can't say it." But with Marcia's help and a lot of effort, he really overcame that in the first movie. I love Ford's performance in this scene. I think it's one of the defining Han Solo moments. The way he's clearly freaked out, making totally split-second decisions and just kind of hoping for the best. With some comedy that really holds up, even to this day. Not to mention the way that Leia, who hasn't even met the rest of the characters yet, immediately takes charge and fits right into the group dynamic without missing a beat. Star Wars is a series probably better known for its visuals than its scripts. But part of what makes A New Hope so impressive is just how rock solid this screenplay is. Everyone knows that George Lucas created Star Wars as a tribute to the science fiction movie serials of his youth, and how he even tried to get the rights to Flash Gordon before deciding to do his own thing. But one thing that isn't talked about enough is what Star Wars does so much better than those serials. Yeah, obviously the effects and designs are pretty superior, but it goes a bit deeper than that. Having watched a lot of old sci-fi serials, I can tell you that they tend to be really stiff. Characters often don't have personalities so much as they have functions. The noble scientist, the dastardly villain, the murderous alien. Don't get me wrong, Star Wars embraced a lot of traditional character archetypes, but it was able to transcend them. Characters like Leia are a lot more than their function to the plot. They have real, definable personalities that stick with you. They aren't just heroes in space, they're a group of characters you like to see just talk and interact with each other. Hanging out with Chewie, Han, Luke, and Leia in scenes is enjoyable in a way that watching Flash Gordon characters just isn't. And that group dynamic is quickly established in this scene. Just a ragtag group of space misfits teaming up and flying by the seat of their pants. Star Wars feels like such a huge cultural institution now that sometimes I just like going back to A New Hope to see how scrappy and loose it all feels. With a fun team that would go on to influence everything from Guardians of the Galaxy to Firefly and The Outer Worlds. The imaginative designs, iconic score, and groundbreaking effects will probably always be what Star Wars is known for, first and foremost, but this is my favorite scene in the series because it shows that the film is even more than that. It's about a group of characters who were well written and perfectly cast. Smugglers, princesses, droids, all of them. It's easy to become kind of numb to Star Wars after decades of the franchise being sold to us in so many forms over and over again. But when I sit back and pop in A New Hope, all of that just kind of goes away, and I'm swept up in the fun and creativity of Star Wars one more time. So yeah, definitely check out the rest of the Star Wars Defined series and let me know in the comments what your personal favorite scene from the franchise is. Oh, and without spoiling anything, let me know what you thought of Rise of Skywalker. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm probably going to get to it in the next day or two. And if you're in the mood to explore the merchandise side of Star Wars with one of the biggest toy brands, I highly recommend the documentary The Secret World of LEGO. This thing goes in depth on the history of LEGO and even gets into how Star Wars kind of helped save the company. And you can watch it on CuriosityStream, the home to thousands of documentaries on everything from history to science, biographies, and a lot more. And it doesn't stop there. You'll also be able to get Nebula with the same subscription, a new streaming service made by independent creators like Lindsay Ellis, Just Right, Tirzu, and me. A lot of creators are finding new ways to make content on Nebula, and we have some really big plans for the site that I can't wait for everyone to see. So you can support a lot of independent creators and get tons of high quality documentaries just by signing up for their annual membership. Only $19.99 for the entire year. Get access to all of that and a free trial by going to curiositystream.com/CaptainMidnight, which you'll find in the description and pinned comment below.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts.